Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
In your book, you have a chapter, fascinating chapter on Doklam to Galwan, which I was going through last night. In this chapter, you give the narrative of downward slide in bilateral ties. Doklam in 2017 to Galwan in 2020, as seen from Beijing. This happened despite two highly successful informal summits at Wuhan and Chennai in between. Can you share your thoughts on this downward slide which has occurred over the last 3 years? Two major disruptions in relations, one which we are still going through despite informal summits of Wuhan and Chennai.
I think one confession that I have to make is I think a lot of people said that the events of the summer were a long time coming and were expected. But I have to confess that I was completely taken aback only because covering the last 3 years, it seemed to me that both sides had invested so much in repairing what had happened at Doklam. And in my case, as it turns out, a lot of rewriting had to be done because I finished writing this book on August 1st. So I did have some time to try and digest what was happening in May and June. But frankly, I think the sense was that 2017 August was as low as it would go. For me, those 72 days in Beijing were in many ways the strangest time that I'd spent in China. It genuinely felt that more so than today, the attention that the Doklam crisis or Doklam incident was getting, it was daily. It was covered in every Chinese media outlet like People's Daily, PLA Daily, something we haven't seen this time around. And following Doklam, there was a sense that there was a meeting of minds, that both sides had decided enough was enough, which was why you had these two informal summits. And I frankly thought that what we had seen, the outcomes from Wuhan and the outcomes from Chennai, were going to have a lasting impact, at least for the next year or two. And the fact is that 2018 and 2019 were perhaps some of the most peaceful years on the line of actual control in many years. So I, for one, didn't see it coming that you would undergo this terrible crisis, the worst since 1962. But in hindsight, I think that there were some lessons from what we heard from the Chinese from Doklam that we're seeing repeated today. In fact, as you may have noticed just yesterday, there was this reference to the LAC of November 1959. Now, that was something that was mentioned during the Doklam crisis as well by China, but then subsequently not highlighted. In some sense, I think both sides got lucky because of the fact that China was hosting a summit and they wanted Prime Minister Modi to come. In a weird coincidence, some of the previous standoffs as well seemed to have this incentive for both sides to step back, whether in 2013 or 2014, when you had visits that were imminent or ongoing. So from my own perspective, I did not expect that this huge investment to fix the relationship would just be discarded so quickly, just 5 months or 6 months after Xi Jinping's visit to Chennai. I think the other interesting fact that I took away from Doklam was, from a journalist's point of view, was the way that the Chinese were using media, and which now people call with very broad brush term information warfare. But I think the way in which the Chinese are using media, social media, to increase nationalist sentiment, which we've seen over the last few months as well. I think that a lot of the Doklam playbook we're still dealing with 3 years down the line. But as I mentioned in the book, I frankly didn't see it coming. I don't know about you, but I didn't see it coming in May 2020.